Andra Group, and this is Charlotte Market Buzz, your daily report for all things real estate in the Charlotte metro region. Sometimes we talk a little about the states we live in and work in. Sometimes we talk a little national news, but mostly everything is about real estate in the Charlotte market. And today I want to talk a little bit about our contract. Because I'm running across something that I think that you as a buyer or you as a seller need to understand about our North Carolina contract. And I know from time to time we talk contracts, but this one's really important. And in slower markets, I'm seeing some of these pop up, but let's face it, even though our market is slower than it was in 2021 and 2022, it is not super slow. And we are not in a buyer's market, even though buyers are able to negotiate more in a contract than they were a few years ago. So I'm going to show you this because I think it's really interesting to talk about. And what I'm talking about today is something that I'm dealing with right now, which is a contingency. So I just want to go through this, and this is on page 7 of 17, and this is an offer that did not get accepted. So I'm not using anything funky here. And I'm never going to show you anything other than whatever those initials were down there. But here's the thing. When we are writing an offer, okay, this page is 6, and this talks about the financing, like buyer representation for how they're going to pay for this house. Are you paying cash? Yes or no? Are you getting a loan amount? And then are you doing a second mortgage? We don't see those very often, but if you were assuming an FHA loan, you can assume the loan that's on the house. But let's say the loan on the house was $200,000 at 2.5% interest rate. You can assume that interest rate. But if the house is selling for $500,000, the extra amount has to go on to a second loan. So that is one of the ways that you will see a second mortgage. It's very rare. We don't see many first and seconds anymore. They might come back, but I haven't seen them yet. So, but down here below that, it says other property. Buyer does or does not have to sell or lease other property in order to qualify for a new loan or to complete the purchase. Okay. Now, I got a client that does have to sell. Okay. And when you have to sell, now you're going to add the address of the property. So I'm going to need their address because that's going to have to be included. Now, check if applicable. Buyer's other property is under contract as of the date of this offer, and a copy of that contract has either been provided to seller or accompanies the offer. Buyer may mark out any confidential information. Failure to provide a copy of the contract shall not prevent this offer from becoming a binding contract. However, seller is strongly encouraged to obtain and review the contract on buyer's property prior to accepting the offer. Okay. So what that is saying is if you have a house to sell and your home is under contract, you need to provide a copy of that contract, because the buyer needs, or the seller needs to confirm that. The listing agent is going to want to confirm that. If you are a seller and you have a buyer that is sent over an offer that says they have to sell to buy, and their home is under contract, they are representing that their home is under contract, you want to be able to confirm that. So you need a copy of that contract. Now, here's the next couple of little check boxes. The buyer's property is not under contract as of the date of the offer. Buyer's property is either listed with and actively marketed by a licensed real estate broker, will be listed with and actively marketed by a real estate broker. Buyer is attempting to sell or lease the property without the assistance of a real estate broker. Now, which one of these three would be more enticing to you as a seller? Is if it's listed and actively marketed, if it's not listed yet, or if they are attempting to sell it on their own or rent it on their own. So here in renting doesn't make any sense to me if they need to sell to buy. So these are the other options. And in my instance, the home's not on the market yet. And I don't know how that's going to work out, but I follow the direction of my clients. And this is what I have to do. Now, there is a big blue box here. I love these big blue boxes. This means you really need to read this closely. This contract is not, NOT, not conditioned upon the sale or lease or closing of buyer's other property. All this is above here, all this is a notice. This is just advising the seller that the buyer has a house to sell and needs to sell it in order to purchase their home. Okay. Now, this contract is not conditioned upon the sale of the buyer's home. If the parties agree to make this contract conditioned upon the sale, the closing of the buyer's other property, an appropriate contingency addendum should be drafted by a North Carolina real estate attorney and added to this contract. Now, here's what this is saying. First of all, North Carolina, the Real Estate Commission, is not getting involved in contingency to sell real estate. Okay. I have no forms for it. And as a matter of fact, my client said to me yesterday, well, isn't this a normal form? Isn't this a normal situation? And the answer is no. It's very abnormal. It is rare. I talked to my closing attorney the other day about it, and he's written 3 contingencies in the last year, and none of them worked out. So this is the issue. It's a big contingency and it's a big ask. And not only is it a big ask, but I might be submitting an offer to an agent that doesn't know how to handle it. And if they don't know how to handle it, then where do we go from there? And so I have talked to my clients about making other arrangements. And I don't know how this is going to work out. And maybe next week at this time, we can have a conversation about how it's working out. I suspect that, in my opinion, okay, if I had a listing and someone sent me an offer with a contingency, probably what I would do is, if that house is not under contract yet, I would wait until the house is under contract before looking much at the offer. And once the house is under contract, then you will have a closing date and you will know how long it's going to take to get that house closed so you can close. But right now, if I'm have an offer that's submitted for one of my listings and that house is not on the market, how can we create an appropriate closing date? You know, what if this house is in an area of the country where their closing dates are 30 to 90 days out? What do you do? I don't know what you do. How do you handle that? Does your seller want to go for a 30, 60, 90-day transaction? I don't have any of those answers, but I know that it would be concerning to accept an offer like that without a significant amount of money being placed up front to guarantee that these folks are not going anywhere and that they are going to be working on as fast as humanly possible, and time is absolutely of the essence. So I don't know how this is going to work out. These are very unusual. We do not have we used to have a form for a contingency to sell, and North Carolina has gone away with it. Is it in other states? Yes, it's very common in some places in the country, but in this area, in the Charlotte metro region, is not as common. There are ways to negotiate it. But it is my take that if you are asking for a contingency for 60 to 90 days or 30 to 60 days, or you're asking for any contingency to sell and your home is either on the market and not under contract or sold or not on the market yet, there's going to be a lot of money involved in this situation. So I'll let you know how it works out. Probably can't talk any more about this until after we get it closed. But after we get it closed, I will talk to you about it. But I did want to talk about this contingency a little bit because number one, we really don't have one, and it's got to be written by the attorney, an attorney, and approved by the seller and by the buyer. The buyer's got to approve it as well. So I just wanted to talk about that today because it's an important thing that comes up from time to time. And I don't know what's going to happen here, but I do know that I'm always going to do my best to get my clients' offers accepted, and we'll just see how things go. But the contingency to sell is not a form that the state of North Carolina provides to an agent. It is a form that has to be created by an attorney, and it is a form or a contingency that we do not use a lot. So if you're thinking about that, it's probably best to use that on properties that have been on the market a while, but not sure, how this will work out, if this will be accepted with the contingency or not. I have no idea. So let's talk about something else because I have a few other things to look at besides contingencies. Okay. So I thought I would show you Fannie Mae's housing forecast. So let me pull this up, share this. Here we go. I think you can see that now. Yes. So what this is the May 2025 housing forecast. And I know we are almost through the month of May, but I wanted you to take a look at this because it's going to be really, really important going forward to see what's going on with what properties are being sold, multifamilies, that sort of thing. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of units here and total housing I'm looking here at May 2024. Things have not changed too much between last year and this year. Their forecast for May 2026 is slightly higher than May 2025. So you can see the year over year, we're about a negative 2.7%. And it looks like 2026, they're projecting close to 2% in an increase in housing sales. Okay. Single family, one unit, we are down 5.3%, negative 5.3%. They're looking at no change for 2026. Multifamily for Fannie Mae mortgages is interesting because obviously multifamily is a really, really interesting sales product. This year we were actually up 4.8% from last year, and looks like an increase next year. But look at the dip in 2024 from 2023. Significant dip. Total home sales, as we can see, we're at 3.6% up from last year and 6.8% up from the projection is up double almost from the year before. And so I think this is just a really interesting, document to look at. And then the other document other graph that I wanted to take a look at that I think is really, really interesting. And this just shows some housing softening, okay, in metro regions, okay, and mortgage payments and what the median mortgage payment is. And we are seeing some decline in mortgage payments. And frankly, I think that has to do with what's happening with interest rates a little bit, and people are not, the affordability is a little bit lower than it should be. And I think people are buying some cheaper houses. I mean, not everybody can buy a six or $700,000 house, and we're seeing quite a few homes sell below our average sales price in this region. That is a hot commodity. A nice house under the average sales price in this area is a very hot commodity, and it will get sold pretty quickly. So here's what we have: US metro area. And none of these metro areas are close to us. I mean, okay, Nashville's the closest. And what we're seeing is a year-over-year decline in mortgage payments. Now, the median mortgage payment in Nashville is $3,010. That's significant. It's significant. Look at the average or the median monthly mortgage payment in San Francisco and in Oakland and in Seattle. Okay, these are tough, unaffordable markets for so many people. But then look at Jacksonville, Florida, which has typically been a fairly affordable part of the country to live in. Austin, Texas, their mortgage payment decline is at 1.1%. But if you look at the cities that are having softening sales prices, okay, Austin is sort of ground zero for softening sales prices, because what happened during COVID? So many people from California moved to Austin, Texas, and the price went up, and now the prices are softening. Okay, there are a lot of price reductions in Austin, Texas right now. The sales market there has slowed considerably. And so, you have high times and you have slow times, and it's not, what's the word? Atypical for a market that has seen an overabundance of sales for a certain period of time created by an event, see a softening cycle afterwards. It's a bit like a pendulum, right? The pendulum moves to the left, moves here, and then it's going to move opposite on the other side. And that pendulum tends to swing very similarly in a real estate market, and especially when governments get involved in the housing market. And take, for instance, 2008. In 2008, 2008 was a market in which was created by the government allowing purchasers to purchase homes without as much vetting. Okay. The requirements were softened by the federal government. And at some point that came to roost, and we as Americans all paid for that decision. And COVID, again, a lot of it was, I'm not going to say government created all, but what happened during COVID was a result of some government decisions, and people made some decisions about housing, and interest rates were incredibly low, and everything just sort of turned into a perfect storm. And after that perfect storm, there is a rebound. Okay. Interest rates rose, sales prices softened, and in some places declined. And that is what we're looking at today. And so some of these cities are seeing a significant softening in prices, which is going to result in softening in median mortgage costs. And so if you're, considering buying in a place where they're seeing softened prices, then I would certainly consider getting a shark of a buyer's agent and trying to hammer out a great deal for yourself. Now, we are not in that position here in Charlotte. We are not super close to being in a seller's market, although we are showing some seller market tendencies. And, we just have to keep an eye on things. And I don't know what's going to happen over the course of the next year, but if interest rates continue to go down, and they're going down slowly, but they are less than they were this time last year. And actually, they were less this time now than they were in the fall, although week to week, sometimes interest rates have taken a big hit. The situation is that, we need to watch what's happening when it comes to inventory. And that's really what I'm pulling up my SAM report. We talk about SAM a lot, and let's just take a look at inventory for a minute, because it's always good to keep an eye on that. And here's our SAM report, and we're just going to do not entire MLS. Let's do Charlotte MSA, Charlotte metro area. Let's not do new construction. Let's just do resales, and then we can look at our month supply. Here we go. So the month supply here, and me, I like to do the every month separate. Here we have in our entire metro 2.7 months of inventory. And if we look at the entire MLS, okay, this is everything, Hickory, Asheville, we are at 3.3. Okay, now what is a buyer's market? 1, 2, 3, 4 months of inventory. I'm sorry, seller's market. 1 to 4 months of inventory. Okay, 5, 6, 7 is a balanced market. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 9, 10, 11, 12 is a buyer's market. Okay, we don't have enough inventory. And if just because prices have softened, homes are not selling in 3 hours, doesn't mean that we're not still in a seller's market. And it's an important thing to remember, because as a buyer, you might be able to hammer out some better deals for yourself, especially if a home has been on the market for a while, which means it's overpriced. However, there's a limit to that. And so a buyer and a seller have to come to a meeting of the minds and work together. And if the buyer is unwilling to do so, or the seller is unwilling to do so, it's time for the buyer to move on to another home. And if a buyer's unwilling to, it might just be time for a seller to say, I'm sorry, this is not an offer that we're going to accept, and just move on. But here we are in the Charlotte MSA with 2.7 months of inventory. We are in a seller's market. Now, always, because I'm super curious about this, shows depending, average shows depending. Across the MLS right now, we're at 13. And then if I add resale and new construction back in, and we look at month supply, we're at 3.1. So new construction is moving along at a pretty good clip. If I just look at new construction, we're at 3.4 months of inventory, 2.7 months of inventory for resale. So there's some inventory sitting out there for new construction. And new constructions are the deal right now, because builders are bending over backwards to sell their houses, and they are offering lots and lots and lots of incentives. And here very soon, I'm going to start doing some walkthrough videos of model homes and neighborhoods, so you can get an idea of what's available out there. And there's quite a bit. So, yeah, if you're thinking about buying, it's easier to negotiate on a house that's been on the market for a while, 60, 90, 120 days. It's easier to go to new construction and negotiate that. And that's where we are today. So hopefully this has been interesting. I think the market's doing well here in the Charlotte metro region. However, if you are a buyer and need to use a contingency to sell, it's going to be very tough. Be prepared to cough up some money and see what you can work out with the seller. It's never hurts to ask. And I'm going to look forward to negotiating this one today. So That's going to be it. If you have any questions, you can always reach out. Number 704-617-0847. Catch me on the web at cltmarketbuzz.com, cltmarketbuzz.com, or anruddgroup.com. Hope to see you soon. Have a great day. Try to stay dry. Take care. Bye.